All right, so now we're going to create a simple UI. I just want one so that I can adjust the mouse sensitivity and do an invert of the mouse Y control too, because that's common in a first-person shooter. So we're going to create a UI panel so that when we press escape, it will toggle into the UI and out of the UI. And it will also, we want to be able to save it as well, so that when you restart the game, it will load the latest settings. Okay, so this is the reticle. We don't want to touch that. So I'm just renaming this to reticle so we don't touch that. We're going to create a new canvas first. We don't want to use the same canvas. We'll just create a new one just to keep it separated. And we'll put a UI, I guess we'll call it settings UI. And then in there, we want a UI panel. So that'll be the settings panel. And we're going to turn the reticle off for now. And keep this on. And set this to scale with screen size. 1920, 1080. And match the height. And then on the settings panel, this is automatically set to stretch the full width. So what we want, we can change the color to more darker color. And we can change the alpha as well to make it lighter or darker. I'm going to go with the dark one, and then we're going to create another smaller panel. That's the setting. It'll be the settings. Control settings, I guess. And we're going to take this off of stretch. We'll put it to center and press Alt or Option, Shift, and we'll do that. And the width, the width and height, we don't want it the whole width. We could just do 500. Say 1,000 by 500 maybe, or we could do, oops. We'll just do that for now, so it'll be in the middle somewhat. And let's see, like that. Maybe we can make that brighter, a little bit brighter. It's fine. For now, we can always change it. I'm going to put a text mesh pro here and import that. This will be the title. And we're going to put it at the top. And we'll call it settings. So about 50 is good. And we'll center it. So we're going to create a game creator UI slider. And we'll put that in this control settings panel. And the slider, well, we could anchor it there. Okay. And then the toggle. Is it a regular? It's a regular toggle, isn't it? Yeah. So a game creator slider is different because we've got this on change set thing. You can set it to a variable, so you can just save your settings in variables, and you have this set from source as well. You don't get those at the bottom of a regular one, so let me delete that. And we're going to create a game creator UI toggle. And that will be the invert Y axis. And this slider will be mouse sensitivity. So here we want to anchor this to the left side. Here. See, the toggle has some text here, a label, and it is not visible. Okay, so I'm going to delete the label. I'm not sure why it's not working. I'm just going to delete it because we can just do that. It's just a label after all. So my new label is going to be a copy of the settings label. So that's fine. And then we can size this down, put it over here. And yeah, it needs to be smaller. Maybe 24. And we'll align it. And put that like that. And we will just put a label for the mouse sensitivity. I'm going to create a text mesh pro. We'll put it in with the mouse sensitivity. Mouse sensitivity. Okay, so now we have our two controls. Now this, the label's on the top of it. And so we have that. Okay, so I think that's good. Yeah, how's that gonna be playing the game? You might want to make these bigger. but we'll check it maximized. So that's good, I guess. Maybe a little bit bigger. We'll make them. So how do we do that? Let's do this. Yeah, we could just scale that up a little. Yeah, that one you can do width, height, bigger. All right, so that's better. The check mark itself is hardly visible, but let's take a look at that setting. This has to match it. Okay. Let's try that. So we increase the size. It needs to match, so that's better. Okay, so that's good enough. So let's take a look here at this. We want to, on change, we want to set it to a variable. So let's create a global variable in the variables folder. Create a game creator. Name variable, global variables, okay. So we're going to call it mouse sensitivity. And then we want one for invert Y axis. And that one will be a Boolean. It'll be either true or false. And so we'll set the on change set to the global variables to invert Y axis and mouse sensitivity variables, global name variable. Set this to the mouse sensitivity. So now when we change those, it will update the variables. I'm just gonna go back there and look at the variables right now and see if it works. And there it is, it's changing between 0 and 1. And then invert y-axis, true, false. So that's working. It won't save though. We turn on this so that it will enable saving, and then we need to save it. We'll handle that later. The slide, also we want to set it to 0. We don't want 0 and 1. We want flare, or the camera shot actually. The sensitivity here goes from 1, like you can do quite a bit, but like we want it to go from 1 to 5, I think, because 5 is pretty sensitive anyway. So we'll just do 1 to 5. So min value of 1, max value of 5. So then you can change it. Goes from 1 to 5. You could do whole numbers as well, and that would just give you a more less granular, but we'll leave that off for now. Set from source. So it won't. So set from source is pretty good too, because it will look at that variable and load in that value from the variable, so we won't have to do it ourselves. So let's check those on. And then whatever is set in the variable, it should pick it up automatically. So yes, it automatically does it for us. I'm going to reset this though for now. This should be 1. All right, so what are we going to do next? I'm going to implement the turning on and off the settings menu when we press escape. So let's turn this off for now. And you might see this shader channels thing in this vertex color, because by default this is off. And I'm not sure why this comes on, but it's just a warning that you can click this to get rid of it and do this, but it seems to come back, so I'm not sure. It doesn't seem to make any difference though, so let's turn that off for now. And we'll turn our reticle back on. So now we just want to toggle the settings menu when we press escape. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is keep track of if the game is paused or not. So let's add a variable, is paused. And we'll make that a Boolean. And then we'll go back to this game manager, and then we're going to do a run conditions. And we're going to create a conditions with 2 branches. So the first branch is if the game is paused. So we're going to take a look at the variable. So compare Boolean to the global name variable is paused. So if it's paused, then we do some things, and then we're going to also copy this to the other branch. And if it's not paused, then we do some other things. So if it is paused, on start. No, we don't want it in the on start either. Okay, so what we want to do is add another trigger to this. Let's move that up here. Right here. For input. Input button, escape. Keyboard press. We'll use escape. So on escape, we want to run this conditions. So if the game is paused, that means our settings is visible, so we want to get rid of it. If it's not paused, we want to pause the game. So let's set the Boolean. Not that one. So we'll set bool, the global variable. Is paused to true. And then we want to show the set active, the settings UI to true. And we want to turn off the reticle. So actually we'll do that first. Set active reticle to false. Okay, so then if it is paused, then we want to do the opposite here. So let's copy that. We'll turn it off. And then we'll set the reticle to true, turn it back on, and set the active settings UI to false. There we go. Yeah, to false. Okay, so active reticle to true. Okay, so let's just test that out. So if I press escape, I have my settings menu, and then press escape, it's gone. So that's good. The only thing is now the game is still active though, and we can still move around. So we want to pause the game when we're in the settings menu. So then we can add an instruction here to pause the game. When we're pausing the game, we can set the time scale to 0. So let's do that. And then we will also set it back to 1 when we unpause. So now we can't do anything, and we have this. We also want to unshow the because I have the cursor visibility. So we're gonna copy that and also set the cursor visibility to false if we're unpausing it, and to true if we're pausing it. Because we want to be able to see the cursor. Because in a build, you're going to see that you won't see the cursor unless you bring it back, so because you don't see it. But this will turn it on, and it will turn it back off. So that's good. That's what we need. All right, so we want to save these variables so that when we go in, come back into the game, it'll load from the saved version. So we want to save the game. So when we're unpausing it, we're going to save the game so that any changes we made in the settings menu and we're just going to use slot 1, so any changes made in the settings menu will get saved, and then we're just going to load the game from slot 1 at the on start here. Oh, not there. On start, load game from slot 1. So now we should see these variables get saved across play sessions. So if we want to put up the mouse sensitivity and check that on, and then if we let me turn off the game. Okay, they won't show up here, but they're saved in your save game. So let's see when we reload the game, it should still have those settings. And yep, it does. So it's loading and saving to the save game file, which you can check here what it is in player prefs, but we can change it to a JSON file as well if we want to. So that requires this to be set to on, and then just the save and load is all we need, those commands. So then the last thing we need to do is actually tie in the values with the actual settings so that it actually does something when we reset the mouse sensitivity in the invert. So that would be in the camera shot. So what we can do here is change the sensitivity to the the variable mouse sensitivity and the Y sensitivity as well, because they both use the same, we were using the same value on both. Okay, so that's all we should need for that. Okay, so the mouse sensitivity, crank it up to 5. It's a lot more sensitive. And if we bring it down to 1, it's a lot less sensitive. Yep, there's a big difference. Now, how do we get this invert to work? Because that currently does not work. So we can do that next. So with the invert, if invert is turned on, we want to put a negative mouse sensitivity instead. If it's turned off, then we want a positive mouse sensitivity. So in order to do that, we're going to need an invert variable here. So we're going to create an invert variable. So we'll call it invert multiplier. And so basically we're going to multiply the value of this, and it's a number. It's going to be either 1 or -1. So by default we're going to set it to 1, and then we're going to change it to -1 once the check mark is changed. So we're going to change the sensitivity here to multiply. So math, arithmetic, multiply decimals. So the first decimal will be the variable mouse sensitivity, and the second one will be the other variable that we just created, the invert multiplier. So all we need to do now is to change the invert multiplier. So to do that, we need a trigger. So we want to check to see when this variable, the invert y-axis, changes. So I'm just going to create an empty child, call it trigger invert y-axis. I'll just put it right here. And we need a trigger. And we're going to check for global name variable changes. So we're going to monitor this variable, invert y-axis. So once if it changes, then we're going to run a conditions. And let's create a conditions and have 2 branches. So if, and then compare boolean, check the variable, invert y-axis. If it's true, then we want to set the multiplier. So set number. Invert multiplier to -1. Okay, and then the next branch is if we're turning it off. So if it's false, so this one by default has this compare to true. You can change it to value so that you can use a checkbox there. And then, so if it's false, we want to just set this back to 1. That should do it. This will only run if this panel is active. So if you're changing it in there, this will set the multiplier accordingly. So let's see if this works. Settings UI. vertical. Okay, good. Let's do play focused. And let's see. Okay, so the mouse sensitivity is 5 because I had it set to 5. So let's turn it down to 1. The invert Y axis is true. That should change the invert multiplier, and it's not. Why isn't it? So why isn't that working? Trigger invert Y axis. We forgot to do something here. So in here, we need to make sure the conditions is set to do that. So let's try that again. Okay. True. Okay, so there we go. Invert multiplier is -1. So now let me just turn that down. Now when I go down, when the mouse goes up, the camera goes down. When the mouse goes down, the camera goes up. And when I turn it off, then it's not opposite. It's not the opposite anymore. So let's see. Up, down, up, down. So down is up and up is down. And up is up, down, down. So it's working. So we've got the invert working as well. So if we turn this on, and then it saves it, and then we go back out and back in. The invert multiplier is set correctly now, so that's good. So that should work. I don't really like an inverted axis, but some people like it. So now you know how to offer them an inverted axis and the mouse sensitivity settings through the UI. So that's what I wanted to accomplish for this video. All right, so that's it for this video. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, comment down below, and we will see you in the next one.